call to order the Fayette County Board of Education work session on September 9th, 2019. Dr. Barrow, any changes to the agenda?
No, sir. We would recommend the board approve the agenda as submitted.
All right, need a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. All right, all in favor? 4-0. Dr. Barrow, I'll turn it over to you for the presentations.
Okay, first on the agenda, we're at a point where we're beginning to move forward in addressing our model of achievement and accountability. I know Dr. Turner is going to speak to us about one of our first priorities, and that's dealing with our equity and access for all students. And I know the actual strategic plan was just approved a meeting or so ago, but we wanted to go ahead and begin reporting out according to the model of achievement accountability, and I feel like this is a good first attempt, and want to share with you where we are at this point. So, Dr. Turner.
All right. Well, because the strategic plan was just approved, we don't have data. Yes, I'm sorry. Okay, it says it's on. Right here, is that better? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Ooh, it's kind of in my face. The strategic plan was just approved, so we don't really have any data on our performance measures at this time, and we're still working on baseline data. But I did want to go through and show you all the initiatives that we've already started under the strategic plan. One of the things in the strategic plan is that many of our initiatives are repetitive, especially throughout Goal 1. So because we wanted to be able to minimize the number of initiatives and also show how just good best practice can hit lots of targets for us. So if we can just go through the presentation quickly. And I basically just ran through our 6 initiatives. The first one is our instructional framework. So that's being supported by the professional learning that we've done throughout this year, whether it's at new teacher induction, pre-planning, or the professional learning on the September 3rd day. We are continuing our professional learning on instructional leadership, and we are working on a Fayette County definition of universal design for learning that will be delivered to administrators at the November Administrative Council meeting as part of their professional learning. On the next initiative, literacy, you can see that we've already got a lot of things in place for that. So doing many things. I'm not going to go through all of those things, but I did want you to know that we are working to create a consistent definition of literacy. Again, we'll provide PL to all the administrators on that in October. Our next initiative is on school improvement. We've gotten all the school improvement plans. I've asked that all school improvement plans be posted on the website by the end of this week. We're making definite connections in our conversations with administrators on their leaks evaluation system and their school improvement plans. Our conversations will revolve around what attributes of the different leak standards contribute to success on your school improvement plan. And we're in the development of school improvement training for school leaders. One thing we recognize is that many times folks step into the role of a principalship without having any formal training on the school improvement process. And so we're going to provide a more formal training for that, in which throughout the spring, principals will actually be working on school improvement plans for the coming year as they go through the training. So we feel like that'll give them a jump start and give them a better defined process for developing their final school improvement plans. The next initiative, effective assessment, grading, and reporting. The secondary grading task force starts this Thursday. We're still rolling out the standards-based report card in elementary school. The work for grades 4 and 5 is beginning this semester, so that 4th and 5th grade teachers have plenty of time to wrap their heads around that and for us to deliver them whatever training they need and support. In all content areas, we're working on common assessments and use of that data. The next initiative is effective support systems. So again, all our professional learning, CTE folks had collaborative planning time on September 3rd. We're still having lots of support through the digital learning department. And you see the other things that we have up there. One thing specifically to notice that our PBIS and RTI coordinator and coach, which is a new position, they're very actively supporting school-based staff. They're rarely in the office, they're usually in the building trying to help folks with RTI and/or PBIS. And then our last initiative is Future Ready Schools. The media centers have ongoing professional learning on that, and we continue with our connected classroom initiative through the devices themselves, continuing to put those in students' hands, as well as supporting the digital learning integration. And then Mr. Farmer also has an analysis of network security going at this time. So any questions on our goal 1.3, equity and access for all?
Of all of these initiatives, would you say kind of maybe the FC instructional framework is kind of maybe the most important one?
That one is very important, as well as the literacy one. Both of those are very important. It's kind of hard to pick one that's most important because we think
Right.
they're all important.
Right.
But those two we are giving a lot of attention to. And, these are all initiatives that are going to be ongoing. Some of them are multi-year type things, such as the one on grading assessment, grading and assessment. So, but at this time, we are still really focused on instructional leadership, and we are putting a lot of effort into our literacy program.
Okay.
Mr. Hollowell, I would make one comment. I think that the work that we've done in the refinement of our strategic improvement plan is in itself much more focused. I think it's more clear. I think we're looking at greater depth rather than, a breadth of things that we're trying to focus on. So we're excited about the opportunity. And again, this is a 5-year plan, and we'll continue to work on this throughout the next 5 years. So more to come. Okay.
Anybody else?
Okay, thank you. Mr. Hollowell, item B is a presentation we wanted to share regarding the learning management system overview, and Ms. Crawford's going to come up and share some information with us. Just as a little bit of historical information, we actually started working with a learning management system, or LMS, about 5 years ago. We feel that we've made good progress with it, but with any practice, you want to continue to evaluate and make sure it's doing everything that you think or feel like it should. We actually started the review process probably more than a year ago with conversations about this. I know the old expression, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. We have some people who like what we're currently doing. We have a lot of people who say they're not particularly satisfied. One of the things that we've looked at is data usage, both on the part of students, staff, and our parents. And we want to increase those number or users with our product or with our platform. So anyhow, we wanted to give the board an overview of where we are with the evaluation of the LMS, and Kate and Jim are going to share that with us here today.
Thank you. Good afternoon. One thing, as Dr. Barrow mentioned, this has been an ongoing process. As we've gotten more feedback on our current LMS system from all stakeholders, parents, students, and of course our teachers, we have really been trying to pave the way to do a very good job in evaluating a new system. Thank you, Kay. This system will make that standards alignment, evidence-based reporting that we're really focused on here at the district level much easier to accomplish, track, and communicate. Again, thinking of our parents. Both vendors will handle the migration services from our current LMS into the new system, so our teachers won't have to worry about that. Seamless integration of our Google assignments and G Suite for Education. That will allow for grades to pass automatically to Infinite Campus, our student information system. And I'm sorry, I'm reading a slide. I hate to do that. But it's helping me. I haven't been in front of you in a long time, I'm a little nervous. And this is such a beautiful space. I'm just in awe. And a more elementary friendly user interface. This is something that's very important. We realize that. We know that a lot of teachers very understandably have moved to easier platforms and easier systems. But we really want to bring back in, with these two new vendors of these modern systems, the ability for teachers to understand that that can also have a lot more benefits when it is built into a fully functioning LMS. Okay. It's okay. Thank you. Feedback, as I mentioned, is going to be collected on an ongoing basis over the next few months. I know I had a principal email me today about getting parents involved, and that is very important to us as well. That feedback, much like a textbook adoption, will have lead contacts at the buildings. Those teachers will be leading a team of teachers who will be watching the vendor demonstrations. Those will be starting next week. They will be recorded also. Yes, sir.
Is the current vendor going to be in the mix to renew or not?
Well, I can tell you what I said
I mean, I don't
today.
wanna pick
No,
it, but I'm
no,
curious.
no, I think it's a great question. Brian, what I said today was, we're looking at what we have. We know what we have today. We don't think that the system has evolved as well as it could have or should have, but that doesn't mean they're automatically kicked to the curb. What we're going to do in looking at the platforms that we've narrowed down is to ask our folks, after they've seen all of the presentations, to give us the feedback on what their preference is. And if we have folks who really feel like what we have is better than what they see, then that may mean that we stay right where we are and continue to work with the company on improving their product. But if we have products that are already better, head and shoulders better, and we can show that, then why wouldn't we want to change? So it's not a done deal yet. That's the purpose of going through this evaluation process. And hopefully by the end of November, we'll have a recommendation for the board based on the feedback that we've gathered.
And then there's our timeline.
Okay, there you go.
So one thing, too, that we find critically important is to follow up with the teachers that are on those evaluation teams. So my team will actually be out in the schools, attending the webinars, following up with teachers, and then, of course, offering support in any way.
Any other comments or questions? I have one. Wow.
There you go.
Oh,
Almost.
I have a little bit of a concern in that I think for a lot of our folks, they've just gotten used to our current software,
Yes.
and the organizational energy it would take to change might wipe out any benefit of a new vendor. So I just kind of want to make sure that the learning curve for the new system, reinstalling all that, that is factored into the calculation.
Absolutely, Mr. Hollowell. And I would go so far as to say that's been a big asking for those two vendors, that I have said you have to have full training plans, implementation plans. I know one feature that we are really interested in is both platforms offer 24/7, 365 online chat for teachers. So if they
Yeah,
get stuck.
And I guess that's not really
benefit.
my thing, is sort of like just the teachers having to go through learning a new system. I don't want our teachers to have a nervous breakdown because they're having
Understandable.
to.
We don't either.
make up
I'm going on record.
I think that's part of the reasoning in having our current LMS as one of the systems that'll be part of the evaluation process. We're not
Yeah.
excluding that product, because if what comes out on top is that our current LMS is serving the needs of our teachers best, then we'll continue with that. If teachers concur that there's a better product out there and they're willing to go in that direction and go through change and training, we'll go with that. We're really trying to find the tool that's most useful so that we can get more consistent implementation of an LMS system.
And I know one of the things that we hear pretty consistently is that there are too many avenues of communication with parents, because you have Blackboard, Infinite Campus, Charms, all that stuff. And it gets, it's a lot to keep track of if you got a lot of different kids at different schools.
Another feature too that we're looking at is how they can pull content from one LMS into another LMS. And so that's a question that's being asked of any new vendor, is how will that content transfer take place?
Okay.
One of the things, Mr. Hollowell, too, I would say this. I know 5 years ago when we started talking about the learning management system, we didn't have that here. I mean, we had Edmodo and Moodle and a few other of those products, but they really were not a full-blown LMS. So, looking at putting that into place to help us manage blended learning applications and looking at personalized learning and ultimately, hopefully even to the competency-based learning pieces that we want to, we have to have a tool to help us do that. It's not, I don't believe it's humanly possible for that to be manually done. We've got to be able to have some supports there. Just from the standpoint of looking at the potential of a new LMS, I don't think the lift would be nearly as heavy as it has been in the first implementation. But we're going to be very, very careful about that. And as we go through, much of the steps that we take will be dictated by our classroom users, our students and our parents. Will also be a part of that, but our teachers are going to be very much engaged in this process. So I know with the whole notion of change leadership, we have to be careful with that. We don't want to overwhelm any of our folks. But if there's an easier way to do something, then why wouldn't we want to make that change? If it's a better way to do something, why wouldn't we want to make that change? So that's what we're in the process of evaluating right now.
All right, thanks.
Hey, you might have already answered these questions, but Rory's computer was distracting me, so, how long ago did we adopt Blackboard? Do you remember? Was it, you said 5 years ago, 4 years ago?
Yes, sir.
5 years ago? How much does that cost us? Was it like $2 million or something? Was it-
No, we're looking
I thought it was a
at.
$2 million investment and then a subscription every year, or am I not misremembering?
I know our annual contract, I signed off on that at the beginning of this week and Monday today, and it was, I think it was $182,000.
For the whole system?
Yes, sir.
Wow.
So, of course, there's a greater amount when you first do a transition and you've got startup costs and those kinds of things there, but we can give you a total cost if that's something you're interested in learning, but
Yeah. I was just trying to think about
sure,
what total 5-year cost has been,
sure,
and then use that as a benchmark going forward.
sure.
And if we make a different decision. And the other question I had is, you talked about this a little bit. I'm just curious how the decision is going to be made. You talked about polling, getting feedback from teachers and students. One thing you didn't talk about that you might already be planning to do anyways is existing users. For example, 5 years ago, I had a lot of experience with Blackboard, and I could have told you why we didn't use it anymore. But I hope that existing users will be very prominent in your evaluation process. And because I've been on both sides of the sales presentation, and I know that you can make something look amazing, but then you talk to an existing user and they say, no, they really can't do that.
We've tagged some of our LMS power users, our superstars with the LMS, to take a deep dive into all vendors and give us their opinion of what they think is the best product for
I think, Barry, you might be saying, talk to existing users of the new vendors.
Oh, to other school
Yeah,
systems.
so if you
Oh,
want to
I'm
use
sorry. Okay.
Blackboard again, well, who's using Blackboard? If you want to use, what's the other one? I can't think of another one right offhand. Who's using what we're thinking about using?
Right.
And
We,
what's their experience with it?
we've already made some contacts with some different districts, some in our area and some that we have some connections with through different consortiums that we're involved in. And,
Seems like that'd carry a little bit heavier weight than somebody who's just been starstruck by a sales presentation.
and we've specifically asked to meet with their teams, with curriculum, technology, professional learning, not with vendors involved at all,
Yeah,
to have those real frank discussions with.
great. And Mr. Farmer, are you going to be the one that makes the recommendation to the board? Are you the one pulling all this together? And
I think you're seeing who's going to be kind of heavily involved in that. It's something that we feel is extremely important. So we're working on this as a team, and it's a group effort because we want the technical side to be what we're looking for, an improvement, as well as the instructional. And one of the big issues that we hear about a lot is it takes me 5 clicks or 10 clicks to do something. And so, unfortunately, the user experience has not been what we'd like it to be for our users, from our young ones to our parents to everyone in between. So that's one of the key factors in looking at an evolution of this platform.
right. One of the things we talked about 5 years ago was our new learning management system will be just a one-stop shop for parents. I can see every class, and we'll collaborate, and we'll share lesson plans and curriculums. And so I think 5 years is a good time period to reevaluate.
And I think there's a lot of good things have been done in that space with these other tools that we're looking at. So we're excited about the possibilities. Now it's the grass is not always greener, and it's not going to be perfect. And that's what we hope to learn in having some of these discussions with other systems that are using it, to kind of maybe avoid some of those hurdles that they ran into. But I do know that the uses of these newer tools, from what we've been hearing and having these conversations, not as in depth as we're going to, but they've been pretty positive in that regard to the collaboration, the ease of use, and the having that, whether it's between classrooms, between schools, or even different districts, but that also that curriculum.
If someone's got a middle, high school, and elementary school kid, they can log on to one place and see.
And I can tell you as the presentation mentioned, the real important factors for us were that our content was going to transition over. That has to be first and foremost. And then secondly, it's that ease of use for our users. We don't want to lose functionality, but we want to give our users back that control, that instead of clicking 5 or 10 times to do something, it's going to be a much more seamless interface for them. Those are all key factors in us looking at a new platform.
I don't have any more questions.
Okay.
Thank
Anyone
you
else?
so much.
All right, thanks.
Okay, moving on to item C, I'm pleased to let the board know that our visitor management system, we completed our installs last week, and actually we were out visiting schools on Friday, and felt good about the feedback that we were getting from our schools. I know Dr. Lombard, Mr. Farmer on the technical side, Dr. Lombard on the logistics side, the operational side. We've got the new systems in and wanted to give you an update on that. So, gentlemen, if you will.
So we'll just kind of, as Dr. Barrow said, we'll kind of give you a update and overview of what's been done in the system itself. So the handout that I just gave you is about the Checkmate system. And the nice thing about Checkmate is that it's integrated with our school information system. So it's tied in tightly with Infinite Campus, which is a very good thing for our data flow and our data security, which that was one of the things that as Dr. Lombard was looking at different systems that we talked specifically about because of the importance of data privacy. So as you can see, I'm not going to read through all the bullet points. They're on here for you to take a look at. But the nice thing about this is the tracking and the seamless integration with our current systems. So also the fact that with one quick click of a report, you can have an instant printout of who's in the building. So if there is an emergency situation, you know who's been checked in, and that can be really helpful. Go ahead, Kay. We'll go to that. So these are some of the specifics with the Checkmate Pro system itself. As I mentioned, the integration, being able to tell where everyone is, easily printing passes. Some of our schools are looking at using it for employee time. That in some cases for substitutes is really helpful. And then of course the real-time attendance as well. And from the security perspective, I think one of the things that it does off the Georgia driver's licenses is checks the Georgia sex offender database with other databases that are looking to be added to that system as they move forward and upgrade. And then you can see again with the integration in campus, it's really easy for front office staff to verify contact information, and if they're allowed to check that student out, it's all tied together with Checkmate and Infinite Campus. As I mentioned before, if there happens to be an emergency situation and you have to have an evacuation or a lockdown or movement around campus, you know who's been in the building, you know where they're going through the Checkmate system, so you can have a quick, easy printout and you can locate all your guests and visitors. Other piece of this is that it's going to be consistent from school to school. Right now, before the Checkmate system, we had some schools that were using probably 4 or 5 different systems, and some were using their own, homemade system with Google Forms, which was fine. But when it came to the reporting and the ease of use and the consistency across the board, we didn't quite have that. So using Checkmate will make that a seamless, uniform experience across all schools. And then the last slide, I think. Okay, one more. So this was as of just the August 20th. So we've got some more data in here. This is from, we had to put this in for last week, so it's a little outdated, but you can see some of the numbers there, and my team had some fun with the last banner there for us. But so far, the feedback we've gotten from schools and from our attendance clerks and front office staff has been very positive. The system is working really well, and I think we're going to see some time savings with that tie into Infinite Campus, and the ability to do some reporting is going to be real helpful for our schools.
Okay. Questions?
Yeah, I had a question. What happens if someone doesn't have a driver's license?
So the schools have a procedure for that with the sign-in, what they were doing, I think, before with a log of that person and getting information. Do you have?
Well, first of all, we can ask for alternate identification. And the problems like passports, that sort of stuff cannot be done, but they'll use those and they'll use the information in Infinite Campus and contact logs to use those sort of things. In some cases, especially elementary school, the front office staff is very familiar with those people. They're in there all the time, and so they can personally verify that. But we have checked a different driver's license, different out-of-state driver's licenses to work so far. So it's going to be rare, but they have a procedure generally in some schools who want to contact the administrator. Others, the front office staff is working that.
Yeah, I've only heard of one driver's license so far that didn't work. It was at one of our elementaries, and it was Washington, D.C. For some reason, didn't work.
Okay. Anyone else? All right, thanks.
Okay, next on the agenda is our review of the J.C. Booth Middle School considerations. I know Mr. Sanders, Mr. Satterfield, they're going to share some information with you, but while these gentlemen are coming, I would like to just set the stage just a little bit. Our facility, 5-year facility plan is something that's renewed, of course, every 5 years, and we look at those plans and we try to stay within the plans and priorities as those are developed. And for the most part, we've gone very well with those plans. The transition, once in a while, we'll have an emergency or we'll have a specific need where we need to alter those plans. But we try to stay in sync with what the plans have called for. I know recently you're aware that we've done some major renovations out at the South Complex with Rising Star Middle School, Stars Mill High School. We've done a very big project over at Fayette County High School and the new auditorium and the renovation there. The board just approved work on Oak Grove. That was another one of our projects that was in line. And then, of course, the Booth Middle School project. And we've talked about multiple types of ways to address this, but ultimately, I think we've come down to two major ways that we can address this. And we've been working on the plan and the data to support each of those plans. And we've got the two that we want to share with you today, because ultimately I feel like unless the board has some additional questions, I think we pretty much have the information that we need to be able to weigh out which option the board would choose to go with. But I'll let Mr. Satterfield, Mr. Sanders take it from that point.
Thank you. Good afternoon. As you've mentioned, we did pretty much come down to the two options. Option one is the transformational option is what we're calling it. As you'll recall, last year the board asked us to take the standard renovation and expand that into an addition and a new gym and just totally to transform that site, that facility into a new one. And that's what option one is. As you can see, this is just an aerial view of the existing booth. The option one is pretty extensive, and we have a list of a number of, in terms of the scope of work of all the things that we've looked into, increasing it to 1,400 FTE, building a new gym, increasing the size of classrooms, and increasing the size of hallways, a great deal of work on the exterior of the building to help with queue lines and parking. Of course, you'd have your standard renovation in terms of painting, floor covering, ceiling lights, HVAC, new roofing. But this was a total transformation. Basically, when you would look at this facility, you would not know that it had previously been Booth Middle School. It was a total transformation of it. The second option that the board had asked us to look at.
There are a couple of,
Yeah.
and this is the same presentation we'd given you guys before.
Right.
I know Mr. Rayball, I don't believe he was on the board yet, but this is just a refresher of what we had presented to you before.
Yeah.
And go ahead to that next slide, Kay.
Yeah, this is another aerial just showing the area of the parking lot. Here's an aerial showing the addition. Basically, the majority of the new addition would be built north of the existing facility. It would go across what is now currently the football field, and that would comprise of the new classrooms, a new administrative area, a new gym. There would also be a large hallway that would go down the side of the existing building, so that you wouldn't have all those 1,200 students going through those narrow hallways that we currently have. The pods would empty out into a large wide hallway that would be the main hallway to move kids basically east-west in the facility. And the football field would be relocated south of the existing facility. The parking lots would be totally reworked, adding a new entrance. We would just about double the queue line, and this would be an effort to get the traffic off of the parkway. And
It's just other renderings.
this is a floor plan of option one. And then here's just some elevations. All right, option number two would be to construct a new 1,400 FTE building on the 37 acres that the board recently purchased on Stagecoach Road. And we have, if we can bring it up, a little video that would show that.
And obviously, we have more detail on this one because it's been designed, where the other was just some renderings.
As this is running, guys, just, and correct me if I'm wrong, I know this footprint, there are a lot of similarities with Bennett's Mill Middle School. Now, we have done some modifications as far as flipping the administrative office up to where the old, or the media center is for security purposes and those kinds of things there. Is that correct?
That's correct. We did the flip of the media with the admin so that we could create that security vestibule on the front of the
Front side,
building.
yeah.
We've added on to the three wings to the end of each of those. We've added additional classrooms on to bump us up from 1,200 to 1,400 FTE. We've met extensively with Steve Green, the principal at Booth, and some of his fine arts people. And we have done a little bit of changing around in the fine arts area. We've expanded those areas. They have a very large and successful fine arts program at Booth, and we needed a little more room in those areas. And we've also kind of reworked the technology area too. So we've gotten a good bit of input from the Booth staff to make some changes, but basically it's just an enlarged Bennett's Mill.
Okay.
This is just a site plan showing the school. To the right is an area there between the two creeks that can be utilized for practice fields. And then we have a football field to the left of the school.
Hey, Mike, on this drawing, you're showing just the area, the road in front of the school is paved, and I guess that's what we're responsible for.
Yeah.
But if we work with Peachtree City, we can go out to Stagecoach. If we work with, I guess, the county and the property owners, we can go out to Ebenezer. Is there any cost associated with building that road? I know we don't bear that cost, but.
Yeah, we have built into the GMP that the cost for the road that we're tying into Carriage Lane, that the cost to put that road in is included in the GMP.
Right.
And from where it intersects with Stagecoach, from there over to the bus loop, that stretch is included in the GMP, all the paving and construction of that.
Well,
And
I
as you
guess-
say, east or west of that, there's still some work to be done in that area
Have
with.
you got any rough estimates for what that would cost, the county or Peachtree City to build those roads?
I believe you're also going to be looking to the developer that has the
Right.
property east of our property. He'll have a big part in that, I'm sure.
He was asking, we have an estimate of that from our road to the end of Stagecoach. Jason, do you guys have anything?
I think, I want to say it was like 600,000.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
sounds
I
familiar.
believe we had some rough numbers in the 600 range to go from the school out to Robinson Road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think I got that figure for Peachtree City.
Right. And I guess the alternative is you hope that the land to the east is that east? Which way is this map going? To the left of this map, you hope that land gets developed and somebody builds a road. And we probably,
Yeah.
nobody would pay for that except the developers, I guess.
Right, the developer would pay for that.
Right.
Thanks.
Yes. You can scroll down, Kay, I think.
And this last page is basically the page giving us a breakdown on the options in terms of what funding would be required for each option. Basically, if you're looking at just only construction, on option one, you would be just under 36 million. By the time, when you add in architectural fees, civil engineering, energy management, networking, furniture, camera, security access, your all-in price is going to be just under 40 million for option one. And option two, you got basically a GMP of 40,625,000. And then once you add in your other fees, your all-in price ends up being just shy of 46 million. So option one is 40 million, option two is 46 million.
And then also note that option one, you would have the capital outlay reimbursement from the state of, I think we put it, estimate that at 6.9 million. And there's none for the replacement. And I put a note over there. You can see those notes that the total cost for that option one, the transformational, is an estimate based on numbers from our architect. And obviously that could change once you actually bid it out and got the true number.
Right.
But the number on option two is a true number.
Yeah. And the capital outlay reimbursement, that number is basically just about tripled from where it was last year because of the modernization aspect that since Booth this summer turned 40 years old, we can apply for modernization funds, which just about triples the amount of money that you would get from the state.
Is this the triple figure, or is this the figure that's going to be triple?
Yes, sir.
That's a triple figure.
Yeah, that's the triple figure.
It was like
Wishful
3.3
thinking.
before.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Hey, let me ask you another question. So on the transformation, correct me if I'm wrong, but by the time we're done with the transformation option, we'll have a building that can accommodate 1,400 students. I know we don't come anywhere close to filling any of our buildings full of to capacity, but that's, the state number, I guess. And so it's the same size building, I guess, is the question I'm asking.
That
So-
was the guidance that we received. Was to,
So when we transform or replace, we've got the same size building,
if we go with the plan.
right, these two
plan.
options.
Yes, sir.
So I just want to make sure we're looking at apples and apples in terms of students served.
Yes, sir.
So, and when you look at this on transformation, it's 28% maybe lower than the new. And I read some commentary, talking to a lot of people, and there was a recent letter to the citizen, where the writer expressed that it might be 50% of the new cost. So it doesn't look like it's anywhere near 50% of the cost. It looks like it's 72% of the cost on my math. And if anything, the transformation numbers, when are bid out, are they likely to go down, do you think?
Not in my
I get-
experience. But
I think I can take that one.
Not in my experience, that hasn't happened.
We do have the architects here and the contractor are both here that can weigh in if you have any questions for them. But in the current market that we have now, it doesn't appear that anything's going lower.
I kind of think what's interesting from, when we started this a year and a half ago, whenever it was, just sort of the back of the envelope estimates were 30 million for the, renovating the current booth and 40 million for new. And we've gone, from 30 million to 39, almost 40. and then 46 for new. So that's kind of an interesting change. But I, like I said, I made this comment before, even though we renovate that, the building, assuming that, we're having to deal with 2 years of construction and all that disruption at the school for the students and the teachers and everybody, at the end of the day, you still have the bones of a 40-year-old building.
Let me ask you another question. I know that we can keep raising the transformation cost till we get a Taj Mahal type building, and we can make that number. We can play with that number depending on the quality we want. But as presented here, when you talk to Steve Green and other stakeholders, what's the quality, or what are the quantitative aspects? Not quantitative, qualitative aspects. Because if we transform Booth and it's still kind of clunky to operate. That might factor in too, but what kind of feedback have you got in terms of qualitative differences?
The biggest the feedback that we received when we went out and met with the faculty was what Mr. Hall was saying, the disruption and of the education process over those couple of years. I think that was resounding across the board, both there and somewhat even from the community, from the parents. I think we could address a lot of the traffic flow issues. So it hasn't been as much that piece as just the disruption that they fear during the construction time.
Dr. Marchman, some of the issues that really we started looking at new as opposed to a renovation issue was the core features of the facility. The cafeteria is not nearly large enough to handle the student population.
Right.
The hallways are very narrow, and as far as traffic patterns are concerned, kids have to go outside sometimes to
Because it's designed to have lunch in the
move around.
pod.
Yes, sir. And so the gymnasium is not nearly as large as it needs to be in order to have a competitive gymnasium program there. There are a number of factors like that part of the reason why. The issue too, and I know when you look at bottom line numbers, one of the things that I don't want us, and we're not pushing one way or the other, we're trying to give all the facts so that the board can make an informed decision, but one of the things that we look at when we see the renovation monies, the capital outlay renovation monies come in, that money doesn't necessarily go away. We still have the Booth facility at where it currently sits. It has been appraised at around $11-12 million. That's a real asset for us either way.
So that 6.9 is still applicable?
Yes,
for
sir,
everything
and that would be, our thinking is that we would want to repurpose that building, and we could use that 6.9 for that reason. So you can't just look at this as two separate items and say, here's a number here and here's a number here. You want to look at it with, the 360-degree version of what we're trying to accomplish here. There may be, and I know that was one of the biggest questions that came up during the conversation with our public, is probably more about what's going to happen to the old booth if we build a new one. And we have some tentative plans that we're working on, but we don't want to spend a lot of time working on something if we're going to go in a different direction. So,
I just, and I know this is probably more for Tom. We've gone over this, but maybe just break down the funding again for the $46 million for the replacement school.
Well, in the scenarios we've worked up, all of the funding for a replacement booth would come from SPLOST 3. So we've worked out the cash flow to see that as we go along and collect, or would we be able to fund the project. And even though there are some tight areas during the summers when total cash is down, we do have enough cash to float the project all the way through.
Would we be giving up SPLOST projects that we already, I know we can't fund every SPLOST project, but, ones like the extra classrooms at Whitewater or. we
Right.
wouldn't be giving any of those up.
Well, we may have to move some projects around as far as timing, if they're going to be in SPOS 3, or how much we use in other areas, potentially.
I think we have to prioritize, Mr.
Right.
Hollowell, and that's we've just finished Fayette County High School's renovation. Well, that was supposed to have been done in SPOS 2, but because of the need for Huddleston to be taken
Right.
care of, we had to push it to SPOS 3. And, we don't want to get out in front of projects. And I know all of our projects are important. In fact, when we were looking at the 5-year facility plan, we had more projects than we had facility money coming in. It was a pretty significant difference. So we knew that we can't do that all in one time. And that's, you have to look at 5 and 10 and 15 years out. And ultimately, that's part of the decision, I think, that the board's faced with right now is what are we looking at that's going to put us in the best position facility-wise for the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years.
Well, or, hopefully longer, this building
Yeah,
lasts
well, a
longer
whole
than
lot
20
longer.
years.
Absolutely.
40.
This might be a question you can't answer, but if we build a new middle school and use the 6.9 million to repurpose the old booth, would that 6.9 million take care of the entire repurposing, or we would need more money to
My question.
We need a little bit more.
need more?
Yes, sir. And I would think part of that would be dependent upon what the repurposing was for. And there may be some other funding mechanisms depending upon, again, where that goes. But, if we're looking at repurposing the facility, we wouldn't be going in and building a brand-new gym, I don't believe. We wouldn't probably need to repurpose the cafeteria because that would probably meet what the building was designed for at that point. But we know we've got a building that needs major attention. We can do it through the transformation, or we can do it through the new construction.
Yeah, pretty much, if we're just repurposing that and utilizing modernization funds, the vast majority of that work could be done during summer times where we're not impacting any instructional activities. Whereas a total transformation, you're a year and a half around the clock because of the additions that you've got to put on. But if you're just doing the repurposing of the existing facility, as far as painting, floor covering, lighting, we do that every summer.
Yeah.
So that would be easy.
Mike, one of the things that we talked about, if that's the direction the board goes in, we would basically be doing that same work while the new construction was going on, so we'd finish basically at the same time. Is that correct?
That to get the money, we would
Yes,
have
sir.
to.
We'd have to.
So if you repurpose it, you said roof, HVAC, paint, floors, lights, what else would you have to do to repurpose it, you think? That's a standard package, I guess.
What else is that modernization?
What'd I leave out?
I know the modernization, you have to do a little bit more.
The modernization is a complete gut of the building. And basically, all you're leaving there is the steel and the concrete block.
Oh, wow.
And you're taking out ductwork, you gotta take all the electrical, panels out, the switch gear.
Plumbing.
You're basically saying to the state, when we get through modernizing this, it's good for another 40 years.
It sounds like you're getting back up to $30 million or so.
But it's, and Dr. Bear touched on it a few minutes ago, and, adding an addition on just for a few classrooms,
Right.
it is not a big deal and it's not cost prohibitive. But when you start trying to address shortcomings of the core, the hallways, the bathrooms, the gym, the cafeteria, the kitchen, it gets very expensive to address those areas.
Was Oak Grove a modernization?
No.
Have we done any
Oak Grove wasn't
modernizations?
modernization. It's not
No,
40 years.
no, it's not.
But to get that $6.9 million, it's got to be a modernization.
Yes.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And that's where, the state never funds 100% of
Oh, yeah.
the project.
They don't fund 10%. So you're talking about probably tens of millions of dollars to do the modernization, and that's what we want to do if we repurposed it.
I would share with the board too that we've had, Mike and Mike have had pretty extensive conversations with the state facility people. I mean, we're not doing this just, on a whim. We've brought them into the conversation early. In fact, they were able to help guide us where we could consider getting significantly more money from the capital outlay program rather than just a general renovation.
Any other comments or questions? All right.
I know we're going to let this set on the table for a while, but certainly if you have questions during the next few weeks, we want to be able to answer those questions. And certainly public, they're welcome to ask as well. I very much appreciate Josh and Jason from Meja being here, and V and Brett from Manley Spangler being here, because they have some skin in this game too, and they're going to be held accountable for staying on track and getting us in on or under budget. That's our mantra.
Well, I think the one thing for people who are listening to the podcast or whatever to remember that the replacement number is a hard number and the renovation number is a kind of a best guess.
I got a question for the chair, I guess. Which meeting do you anticipate putting this on to make our final decision?
I don't know, would it be the next meeting?
Well, it depends upon the level of questions. If we have a lot more questions, if we've answered all your questions and y'all are ready to take a vote, it could be, at the end of September if we need to take longer. This is a big decision. One of the things I would say is that if, depending upon which way we go, if we're hoping to be able to start construction with, the land, we want to try to get started before, I know we hadn't had any rain here lately, but before the wet, rainy winter comes, and but we also need to come back in and go through the bid process on the transformation piece to get a hard number too. So as soon as the board is ready to pursue, we can bring it to your meeting for a vote.
Yeah, I mean, these numbers are not substantially different than we've sort of been guessing at all along. We're making a long-term decision, and I think a long-term property decision, and it makes more sense with these numbers to build a new building. But I'm not sure how much more we're going to learn and how much more we want to.
I think for me, I agree with Leonard, but I would say that we should talk more about the future use of booth.
Yes, sir.
Once we decide on
Okay.
which one. I kind of know in my mind, what's the smart move, but depending on what the
Yes, sir.
purpose of booth would be, I just have a hard time spending that much for the renovation, knowing that it's going to go over that number anyway, so.
Right. We can, I feel like we can give you more information on that during the next few weeks, Mr. Anderson. I'd be happy to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of see that the, probably building the new school makes more sense in that, the school system's very important to this community, and it's, would be a good investment for the community. And I think, like I said, in the past, we have tried to fix Booth kind of piecemeal by piecemeal, and we've kind of added on and added on and added on and have never really fixed it. And I think it's just gotten to the point where just a new school makes more sense than trying to totally renovate it for probably what would just be essentially close to the same cost. Roy?
Yeah, I agree. I just, one more thing, and I know we already purchased the property, but that would be added to the 45 as far as the cost of the new school, right?
Yeah, it's not there.
No, sir, that's not in the.
That's not in there.
No, sir.
But, yeah, I tend to agree as far as the building of the new school. My only concern on the whole thing would be the other projects that we're
Yeah.
switching around and
Right.
with the SPOS money.
And maybe at the next board meeting, you and Tom can elaborate a little bit more on that.
Sure, sure. Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Satterfield, Mr. Sanders? Thank you, guys. Moving on to item 3E, we have class size update, K-12, and Ms. Robertson's going to come and share some, I think, pretty good information with you.
I think it's pretty good. You were supposed to laugh.
We do have growth.
We do.
Yeah.
The good news is that we're growing. When I checked the enrollment on Friday, it was at 20,523. When I checked it at 1:30 this afternoon, it was at 20,535. So we've even
Your
enrolled
numbers
more
are two more than mine. I
students.
checked a few minutes earlier.
They keep coming. Another interesting thing is that I looked at a timeline of our projection from last December when we first projected our enrollment for this year, all the way up to this past Friday. And one of the most interesting things I noticed is from the first day of school, when we counted how many students were in attendance on the first day of school, until this past Friday, we've gained 476 students. So that's a lot of students from the first day of school until now. And it's also very interesting because it appears that our biggest growth is happening in elementary, which I think is more good news. More good things to hear. One of the things you did as part of the budget process is you allowed us to include some teacher and some paraprofessional positions that we could use as needed. So thank you for that, because we have added some additional support at some schools. So I'll just go through those real quickly so you'll know where we've added some additional support. At Birch Elementary, we added a kindergarten teacher and a paraprofessional. And when I looked at their enrollment this past Friday, every kindergarten class is at 19 students. So all of their classes are already full, even though we added another one. At Fayetteville Elementary, we added a fourth grade teacher. At Oak Grove, we added a first grade teacher. At Mentor Elementary, we added a paraprofessional because their fifth grade classes were getting rather large, so we added a paraprofessional to support those classes. Also at Mentor, we noticed that their first grade was getting large, but their kindergarten was not quite as large as we expected it to be, so they were able to shift a kindergarten teacher to first grade to take care of that. At Peachtree City Elementary, we added a paraprofessional for their large fourth grade classes. At Peoples Elementary, we added a paraprofessional for their large fifth grade classes. And at Rising Star Middle School, we added a paraprofessional for their large sixth grade classes. We are actually currently talking with North Fayette because their kindergarten classes are a little over our target. Our target is 20 at kindergarten. Their classes are at 22 right now, and they are feeling that growth. And so we actually have a meeting scheduled with the principal tomorrow to talk about the best thing to do for North Fayette Elementary. So you have the staffing allotments in front of you that show the enrollment and the class sizes as of Friday. I just wanted to see if you had any more questions for me.
Any comments?
I got some negative feedback, you might say, from fourth grade parents at Peachtree City and at Mentor. Just they were looking, with the recent, our response as a citizen, they read the well put together response, and they're grabbing some numbers in there that aren't apples to apples. They're
Right.
staff versus teacher pupil ratio, and they were very concerned that they had, was it 28 or something like that?
Well, we established a target number at each grade level, and for fourth and fifth, our target number for several years has been 28. When I checked Peachtree City's average on Friday, their average fourth grade class was 27.7. So they're right at the target. At Mentor, their fifth grade classes on Friday were 28.2. People's fifth grade was 28.6. So they're actually the largest. So, we do have some schools that have larger fourth and fifth grade classes, but they're right at the target we've set. So we've given them a paraprofessional to help pull out students who need extra attention, to help with paperwork, to help with copying, to help and have an extra set of hands without adding an additional class there.
Mr. Anderson, I'll say this, we strain over that issue. Because when we add staff, obviously that's impacting our budget. So we're careful about that, but we don't just sit here in isolation and do that. We have lots of conversation with principals, and that's why we're meeting with Dr. Moore tomorrow to see which way we feel like is going to be in the best interest. I'm, noting this, I know that during the budget process, this was a conversation that came up as far as does this impact the quality of instruction, and do smaller class size help us, and those kinds of things there. We set our targets based on what the board finds reasonable. I would say that our class size targets are much lower than other districts all across the state. So we want to do that, but by the same token, we're sensitive to the impact that it has on the overall school budget.
And the difference between a parapro and a certified teacher, is it half?
Well, depending upon the experience level of the teacher and that kind of thing, we look at generally a rule of thumb is 2, no more than 3 parapros per teacher slot, and that's why we've done some of the additions of the parapros as opposed to adding a full teacher. One of the other things too, and you look at numbers, but at the end of the day, we also look at what's in the best interest of the kids and the teachers. The routines are already beginning to be established, and we've got a situation where kids having to break up in a classroom and be reassigned to another classroom, that can be very upsetting to kids, teachers, and mamas and daddies. So we try not to do that unless it's really something that we feel is warranted. So we strain over those as we make our decisions.
And we think we're okay at middle school and high school?
We do seem to be okay at the middle school and the high school. Yes, we added a peer professional at Rising Star because their 6th grade classes were bigger than we wanted.
Okay.
But other than that, we seem to be okay.
Any other questions or comments?
Thank you.
Thanks, Aaron. Thank you for the good news.
Moving on to item 3F, our elementary foreign language pilot update. I know Dr. Turner is going to share a little bit with us there, and we had a project that started last year, and we implemented at 5 of our elementary schools. And Dr. Turner is going to give us a little bit of an update there, and if you have any other questions there, you can ask her at that time.
Well, on the slide, you can see that for this year, we've added 2 other elementary schools. They requested the World Languages program through Rosetta Stone. As of Friday, I didn't have the data reports on the usage rate, but at the schools where we give them X number of site licenses, and every school was anywhere from 93 to 100% of using all their licenses. So the usage has been very strong at those 7 schools. Any questions on the expansion of elementary world languages? Yes, sir.
We didn't, this was not a mandate for us as far as elementary schools, I will say that. And the other thing that we consider, unless a school is really petitioning us to add something, we haven't added because of the budget impact. We've tried to be conservative there, and ultimately I'd love to see the program expand to all 14 elementary schools. We're halfway through. And hopefully in time we can be able to get to a point where we have all 14 elementary schools on board.
Mm-hmm. Did you have a question?
I was going to echo Dr. Barrow's comment. I've heard nothing but good things.
Good.
And the schools that don't have it are very interested in doing it. And I think to like the big ideas presentation that we do sometimes, I think this is one of those things, and I don't know how to figure out the staffing, or how you do it right now, but you may not even need a different teacher if you're using Rosetta Stone, because I teach Rosetta Stone in my house with my kids, and I don't speak Spanish. But I think this is the kind of thing that kind of changes the way we're seeing. One of the comments, I know Barry and I were talking, or I read some stuff Barry put together on like the Industrial Revolution, lockstep, everything's been the same, kind of like that TED Talk that we've seen. This is the kind of stuff that I think it matters. It makes a difference.
It does.
And one of the reasons I asked to have this feedback, because I had a lot of good feedback about it, and that's always nice, but I had a clamoring of people at the 8th grade level at Booth, that, you know, there's limited resources, there's only a certain amount of spots to get to take the class. I think what we've seen is there's dramatic support countywide at all levels, especially middle, regardless of elementary, middle, they want to do it as kind of advanced prep for high school. So this is definitely under your big influence.
One thing that we did do, Dr. Turner actually suggested this, and we put this on the agenda, is looking at our 8th grade process. Do you want to speak to that, Julie?
Well, for that is considered accelerated academics for students who are getting ahead in their studies because they're allowed to take a foreign language for high school credit in their 8th grade year. So there's a link there to the placement rubric. It's based on milestone scores, student grades. In some instances, teacher recommendation comes into play. Then when the rubrics are scored, students are rank ordered, and they fill the seats for those foreign language classes. It's a little bit different than the way they would schedule it in a high school where there's a course request and the seats get filled once you push the magic button for scheduling. So this is a little bit different in the high school. They take those that look like they would be most successful in the foreign language of their choice, Spanish or French. At one school, we also have German. And, you know, fill those seats. And then in the fall, if the enrollment changes or for whatever reason they have open seats, then they continue down that rank order and continue to fill those seats. But you're right, there are some kids who might qualify for the program, but there's not enough seats to meet the demand.
At all schools, at all middle schools, where
The practice is pretty standard. Are there a large number
at all middle schools?
I haven't looked to see what it is. You know, our enrollment varies from school to school, so even if you looked at a comparison, you know, for a small middle school, it would look like lower numbers when percentage-wise it might be the same, but I haven't looked at that data. But that program of offering foreign language at 8th grade with the choice to accept high school credit for that is very strong in our middle schools.
Do you do anything different as far as the rubric, or is there accommodations or whatever for native language speakers?
Well, native language speakers can, if they can show proficiency through an exam, then they can get that credit on their transcript and can move on either to a different foreign language or advance more quickly through the series of courses in a foreign language. So yes, there are accommodations made for native language speakers.
Yeah, I bumped into one, Mr. Ribble, that native Spanish speaker, he took Spanish 3 as a freshman, went into AP as a sophomore, and he got 5. He said it was really easy.
That helps.
They were very flexible with him, so he was positive.
They're also excellent tutors.
That's the one.
Well, Brian, I guess that kind of answers one of the questions I had. You said there's more demand than we have spots available. And I was just wondering, is this a program where we could set up a system to let the kids do it at their own pace, maybe outside of normal school hours? And if so, why would we just limit it to 3 languages? Because,
Well,
is that even possible?
I would have to look closely at the requirements, you know, coming down from the state on that. I'm open to innovative ideas. We would just need to make sure that the rigor is there and that we could maintain the integrity of the course when it comes to assessments and those kinds of things. We already have some students who take courses through Georgia Virtual School or through Edgenuity. So, you know, we could certainly look at that.
It gets us back to that competency-based notion. And we certainly want to begin to explore those. I know that we have some ideas about that too. So.
Because some kids could probably knock it out in a month. It'd take me 6 years to learn a language probably.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? All right, thank you.
Okay, last but not least on our presentation list, we have a discussion on our employee benefits study analysis. I know Aaron is here, and we have our colleagues and partners from Clear Concepts are going to have you share a little bit with us, and we'll let you take away.
Okay. Well, as you know, we've been working very closely with our consultants, Clear Concepts, to revamp the benefits program for our employees. We have Eric Kiesauer and Allie Stinson here today from Clear Concepts, and I'm going to invite Eric to give you an overview of the program we're recommending for our employees.
Thank you, Aaron. Hey, everybody. Good to be with you. So we're going to talk today about the results of the bid analysis, but because you're a senior leadership group, I thought we might want to take a ride up to 30,000 feet for a couple minutes anyway and kind of start there. Our title slide is in progress because we're kind of, as a group within your own system, within finance and HR and with our help, we've kind of settled on this total rewards thing. We want to incorporate a little bit of a visual thing in there that's reminiscent of your own logo there, but not infringe upon its sovereignty or whatever we might want to call that. So we're in the final throes of getting that done, but it'll end up being called Fayette County Schools Public Schools Total Rewards, I think. Okay, and then. So the 30,000 feet level is we've been working together for 3 months. We started off with an objective setting process, which involved a survey of all your folks. We did an online survey. Ultimately, we had 900 people respond to that. So we had really good response compared to what we normally see at school systems. And I think it's a testament to to the credibility and of your team that people would take the time to do that. And then we spent a half a day together with Tom and Aaron and their folks and talked through, we facilitated an objective setting process with them. And we came up with a policy statement for that. And I've got that policy statement in your packet. We won't take time to go over it today unless you'd like to talk about it. But we basically laid out what's the total investment that Fayette County Schools is actually making in benefits today? Those are statutory obligations, but it's a substantial amount of money that you put out there to fund state health and TRS in particular, but also Social Security and sick leave for teachers when they can't work. So when you add up that total expenditure, it comes out to be about $94 million or so that's being spent to fund those benefits. And as businessmen, we really want to kind of look at that and go, what are we getting for that investment? Okay, and that's kind of the way we look at it. So that's one of the investments you make in addition to payroll. And so for that kind of money, we want to make sure we excel at these 4 tasks on the board here. This is sort of the principal set of services that we're addressing in our business: recruit, select, onboard, retain. And we want to help you excel at each one of those tasks, okay? So that's what we view our goal to be. That generally will include better marketing of your jobs, and part of that is the benefits, I think the Total Rewards logo. Much broader communication and education using all available media. So we're going to try to help you get this benefits message across and the added value of those benefits in addition to pay to not only prospective teachers, but everybody that's here as well, with the hope that they will appreciate those much more and that it will help your retention, we hope, okay? And we basically want to leverage the skills. You have a great finance and HR team. I mean, I apologize for saying this in advance because it sounds solicitous, but it's not. I mean, we work with a lot of school systems, and from the top to the bottom, your team is particularly good, we think, and it's a pleasure to work with them. And to leverage their skills, we think we can really accomplish something great. So we want to be aimed at helping you select the very best candidate for each job that you have open. To help them focus on the job that you're hiring them to do, and to do that, kind of take some of the burden and the financial worry off of them, so that they can focus on the kids that you guys are all focused on. okay? And then streamline and automate the workflows as best as we can, so we spend as little of our time administering and as much time as we possibly can helping people on a day-to-day basis, okay? So with that in mind, that's our 30,000 feet. We come down to one of the tasks that we've tackled here, which is the subject of today's conversation. The immediate challenge is to take a look at the benefits that you have. And so I described the challenge here in the box as saying that the immediate challenge is you're exiting a very large group with over 120,000 people, employees covered in it. And the idea is that we want to maintain or improve the benefits that employees had from coming from that group at the same or lower cost. Okay, and then to create funding, additional funding from that program, so that we can dramatically broaden the guidance, the services, the tools, the technology that we're putting in play to administer these plans. Okay, so that's our task, and so I'm happy to say, I have good news too, is that we really have accomplished that. We're not 100% complete with it yet, but we're 98% of the way there. So I thought I'd go down for you benefit by benefit real quickly and just tell you how we see this. I'm starting off with long-term care, which is a benefit that you don't see in too many group programs. That marketplace, insurance companies have kind of run away from it now at this point. There are no group solutions out there to replace that. You only have about 30 employees participating in it. One of the problems with it in group situations is it's a complex benefit to explain, and it really needs a lot of personal time. Very difficult to deliver when you're talking to people, just adjacent to their workday and things like that. Very difficult to have that conversation. So our suggestion there is that those people will be allowed to continue that coverage on their own on a direct pay basis, and we think we kind of let that go away from the program and let those folks handle that on a direct pay basis. I can't see any other practical solution for that, and particularly just for that few folks. I think that would be the best bet. Now we get into the much more productive part of the subject. I know one of the key things for you guys has been dental. I've been hearing that since I got here is very important to all your people, and the survey certainly pointed that out as well. So you have a very strong dental plan in place. You have 2 fee-for-service plans, and you have a so-called DMO, dental maintenance organization. Great third choice to keep the cost low and keep the challenge for joining to your lower paid folks, the hurdle as low as we can keep it. So on the 2 fee-for-service plans, we were able to duplicate that plan. Dental is a plan that we expect to be able to go to a range of carriers and get literally duplicate coverage offers. Okay, so we're able to do that, maintain the same plan, and maintain the same cost. I have an asterisk up there with same, is because we're just a little under 1% difference, just a little over on that, but I think we will negotiate that down here in the next day or two, and so we'll be able to tell employees at open enrollment that your cost outside of Georgia Breeze will be the same as it was in, okay? And considering we're coming out of that gigantic group, I think that's a pretty good thing. A little side note about the dental here is that the new carrier for the dental will be MetLife, so we'll be replacing Delta with MetLife. The great news about that is that MetLife has twice as many dentists in network in their network as Delta. So it's going to be much easier for people to find a dentist that's in network, and that means that even though the premium will be the same, that they'll spend less out of their pocket during the year. So we're going to have an advantage from that plan with the new carrier. And there were a couple of the competitors that had networks twice the size of Delta, which was surprising to me. And order of magnitude, Delta had about 80 network dentists. MetLife has about 165. So it's literally quite a few folks to choose from. okay? On the DMO front, we'll be changing carriers there. That's not a benefit that's as easy to match, but we found in Aetna a similar plan design for that, and we'll be able to lower costs for those people 15 to 20%. So like I said, that's a place where I'm particularly interested if we can to save some money, because that's going to be a benefit that's going to be popular to your lower paid people. And that 15 or 20%, will be in the order of magnitude for families, probably about $8 a month, something like that. Individual, more like $3, $4 a month, something like that. So a little bit of savings for folks at that level, I think, can be meaningful. The vision plan, we've been able to improve that plan over the current plans. There are two options today. We've been able to improve on that. That was covered by Blue Cross Blue Shield for within Georgia Breeze. It'll now be a company called Avisus, which is a company that we've worked with quite a lot. They only do vision, and the clients that we have with them, Barrow County Schools is one of them. We've had great success with those. They provide great service, and we get no complaints on them. So I think they'll be a good partner for us there. On the group life side, we were able to save 10% there. Okay, so that'll be a significant savings to folks. Same is true. Whoops, what happened there? We lost it.
You got long-term disability, short-term.
Yeah,
Next.
yeah, I can keep going. The long-term disability is also going to be a 10% savings, and that's at an absolute minimum. If you're familiar with the plans today, and you guys probably aren't, are you? You're not. You don't really know the details of the plans today. So today you have 4 different options in that long-term disability plan, and those options are based on, they're complex. I mean, you're either in or out of a retirement plan, and most of your people are in. And then whether you're in or out of a retirement plan, you're either in or out of Social Security, which is a unique situation for you guys, because you do have some people here from decisions years ago who are not covered by Social Security, and you have some who are. So everybody that wasn't covered by Social Security, anybody that isn't in a pension plan, those people would be much more expensive rate schedules than where most of your people are, which is covered by both Social Security and a pension plan, okay? So the savings of 10% that I'm communicating there that's the savings to the folks who are paying the least right now. The folks that are paying the most right now are going to see their savings is going to be, in some cases, 40% or more. So that's going to be a pretty big pleaser to people out there, I think, when we get that announced, okay? The short-term plan, we've redesigned it, okay? So it's going to be quite a bit different than it was before. And the plan design is aimed at rewarding people who have a lot of sick leave. You fund this sick leave plan, and your average sick leave among your people is about 47 sick days. Many have much more sick leave accumulated than that. This short-term plan gives them a way to, the more sick leave they have, the longer they can wait for that benefit to begin, and the cheaper it gets. And so we're going to see your most tenured folks are going to see their costs for short-term disability drop way down from what they have today, because today they have only 2 options, and the longest one is 30 days. So they're going to have those longer service folks are going to have a much better deal.
So they're going to get like 60 to 90 days.
Yeah,
in
we're
terms of
going
before it
to
kicks in.
have, Scott, we're going to have a 7, a 14, and a 30, compared to today you have just 7 and 30, and then we'll have a 45, a 60, and a 75.
Okay.
Okay, so that'll bring the cost down for folks that have those, a person that's making $50,000, $60,000 that has significant sick leave. That'll bring their cost down from something around, say, $15, $18 a month to like $3 a month, $4 a month. Okay, so significant advantage for them. Where I say very, the one place where people will pay a little bit more is at the 7-day level. We really want to get people, we want that to be a little more expensive, really, because we want people to be accumulating those sick days. If you think about it, if we give them an incentive to accumulate those days, then they stay in the classroom more, okay? And that's what you all want, okay? You want that incremental improvement. We don't want babysitters, and we don't want the cost of substitutes. So the plan is deliberately designed to drive people to accumulate sick leave, okay? And it also pushes their costs down. Does that make sense? On the critical illness side, this is sort of the add-on type benefits, not in the core. We've got very difficult to match these programs exactly, but we've got a very near match designed here. The rates are going to vary, but they're virtually all lower. Everybody that has this coverage is going to save money on this coverage, okay? We tend to try to discourage people from purchasing this. You guys, I'm sure, all know Clark Howard. He's not a fan of these plans. I'm not either, really, okay? But one of the good things about the plan design is it gives a person the ability to purchase a lump sum benefit, and we coach them to spend very little and buy a small lump sum benefit. But it gets that little lump sum benefit for just a few dollars, gets them to the out-of-pocket limits on all the state health plans. So it's a tremendous comfort for people who are otherwise healthy but worried about, a critical illness, a stroke, a heart attack, or particularly cancer, to be able to hedge their bet against the out-of-pocket expenses on the state health plans. Okay. And then there's an accident plan that is coupled along with it, and again, we were able to near match that, and again, varying rates, but nearly all lower than what they are today. So we were very focused on, at the employee level, of how many winners and losers do we have in this change, and at the end of the day, we have almost no losers on any benefit. So I view this as a tremendous success, and then of course it also has generated the funding then for us to do these the enhanced help and communication aspect of this thing. Okay, the centerpiece of the education and the help that we're going to give people is, remember, they've been going strictly to Georgia Breeze and just using that as sort of a benefit strip mall to buy benefits. Okay, now all of a sudden they're going to get guidance on those plans. And we're going to invest the time to go to every school and work location during the open enrollment window, actually beyond it, and give people a presentation and help and guidance on not just this stuff, but we spend a lot of time in that session on state health as well. We've looked at the participation that your guys are, what plans they're in. And there's quite a bit of participation in plans that are probably not in folks' best interest. And to me, that's a reflection of them not really knowing, how do I choose between 7 different medical plans?
Let me pause you right there for a second.
Sure.
I just want to see if any board members have any questions or comments right now, because I'm going to have one, but did you want to say? I know we've had some conversations about the 403B plan, and I think you guys are maybe having conversations with Tom Gray about that.
Yeah.
In terms of reducing cost. I didn't know if there was an update on that yet, or.
Well,
That's very near and dear to my
that.
heart.
We've had some conversations. We kind of feel like the timing of it needs to be a little bit different than the flexible benefits because the focus needs to be on there. But Eric and his group will be working on that as well, so maybe Eric can give us a little bit of an overview of where we're at.
Yeah, and I know you worked on that. I'm looking forward to working together with you on that. We definitely want to get that cost down, and we also want to provide much more guidance, to folks on that plan.
I'm not very happy with the current plan.
No, no, I'm not either. But there's a lot of things we want to accomplish with that, and a lot of it has to do with education. A lot of it has to do with cost and simplification, as well, as you know. Right. But we also want to address, there's I don't know whether you all have found it, but in most school systems, there's a pretty significant we, they, have and have not mentality between the folks that are in PSERS versus the ones that are in TRS. The guys that are in PSERS kind of feel like second-class citizens. The reality of that is that PSERS is a great value to those people that are in it, but it's not tied to their pay. So for what they put in, they get a great benefit out, but it doesn't approach the benefit that they would get as a percentage of pay from TRS, if that makes sense. So it becomes really important for those people to save and for them to earn more than the annuity rates that people are giving, the 1.5% and that sort of thing. They can't possibly keep up if that's what they earn, and yet they're risk averse. So we have to help them get to a place where they are more comfortable investing in something where they can at least earn 5 or 6 or 7% over the long term. And if they do that and have TRS and save some money, they can actually achieve equity with TRS participants or close to it, at least at the lower pay levels. And again, I'm always focused on, as I think you are too, I'm always focused on that level because each dollar means so much more there. So
And it's, they have the risk of losing their purchasing power.
Absolutely.
Over 20 to 30 years. But,
yeah, absolutely. So we are
Okay.
hot on that trail. I've met with, I know you've chosen VALIC, and I, a lot of times I help people pick, but I think that's a good choice, actually.
I think they're the current vendor.
I thought you had settled on them, but so I've met with them, and obviously we're headed down a path where we have all index funds. The assets that are in Peach State Reserves now are, they're 10 basis points. It's hard to beat that, but there's no help. Okay, so we have to find a way in there to fund some help, and but at the end of the day, it'll be a very inexpensive approach. It'll look like something that almost no school systems have in the state of Georgia. It'll be easily understood. It'll help those low paid people and everyone
Probably
else alike.
Target date funds.
Yeah. I mean, I've got a strategy for that to share with you, and we can come to some terms of that. But yeah, much simpler approach, because you can't. All attempts at teaching people how to be investors has not really succeeded. I mean, it's what we need to focus on is getting them to save, and then we have to make it easier for them to figure out where they want that money to be. Right. I mean, that's the way to succeed with it. So
okay, all right.
So,
thank you.
Okay. Anything else I can answer? That's 3 months. We've come a long way, and I mean, this was the real critical question. Could we get you out of Georgia Breeze and get everybody the same or better for less? And the answer seems to be yes. So we're excited.
Okay. Good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
We always want to do our best by our employees and put more money back in their pocket, and it seems like we're headed in a very positive direction. Mr. Hollowell, that completes all of our presentations. We can move into the superintendent's report, and that is very short. First, I want to make note that the Georgia School Boards Association Governance Team application of the year has been submitted. I think folks are very pleased that we're participating this year in that application process. We are still working. I think we've given them 3 dates for the evaluation people to come. They'll actually be here sometime later this month, we think, and we're anxious to put that together. And one of the things that I know that we'll want to do, need to do, have to do is to have a short video presentation. And I know Ms. Barry Dreisbach is already busy at work on that, and we think we're going to have a great opportunity to show what's happening here in Fayette County.
We look forward to delivering them to Mr. Rabel's capable hands.
Indeed. I know Mr. Rabel said he could be there to help us, and we look forward to firming that up. Any questions or comments there? Next on the report is our facility update. Mr. Satterfield has everything listed there, Mike, is there anything specific that you want to mention? I know that we had a little delay at North Fayette with the loop being built. The work out there was not the quality that Mr. Satterfield expects, and he said take it out and do it again. And so I appreciate that very much. We're going to hold folks to accountability there, but high school tracks are
I think
underway.
that was the biggest thing I
That's the
wanted
biggest
to
thing.
report on, is just that that has delayed them completing North Fayette probably by about 2 weeks. So we're looking at about 2 more weeks worth of work there. I would like to note that we are well underway on the tracks for the high school. They're currently replacing, they've demoed both the schools, McIntosh and Whitewater, and they are in the process of replacing the track at Whitewater, and then they'll move on to McIntosh from there. Most of the rest of it is just the fact that we're working on punch lists. We've got our COs from all the projects, and we're just finishing up punch lists and warranty items there, and getting ready to break ground on the addition, the admin and gym addition at Oak Grove. That's pretty much it.
Any questions or comments from Mr. Satterfield?
Yeah, I appreciate the fact that the high schools didn't have to change their first home open game for that. Thank you.
Yeah, that
Yeah, I try not to mess with football anytime I can. That's a no-win for me.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Satterfield. Aaron's already talked a good bit about the attendance and enrollment report. I know we do that on a monthly basis, and at the end of the August, we were at 20,480. That was up 226 students from last year at the same time. As of today, though, we're at 20,535. I appreciate the 2-student increase. So we're definitely moving in the right direction with regard to enrollment. I too am very pleased that the majority of the growth is happening at the elementary and middle school, so that's a good thing. If there are no questions about attendance and enrollment, we'll look at the central office open house. We've set that date for October 21st. If that meets with everybody's approval, what we'd like to do is maybe we're working at having some student ambassadors come and help show around the facility. We'd like to have maybe remarks at maybe 6:15. That way we can get the board into your pre-agenda review at your normal 6:30 time, or pretty close to that. In fact, since I'm asking y'all to come a little bit earlier, I think I'll have some snacks for you there so you won't go missing your dinner before the board meeting. But if there's no questions about the 21st, we'll.
What time?
5:30. We'll
5:30.
just begin the tours at 5:30 and then have remarks at 6:15, I think, is what we've decided on. Okay. Last on the superintendent's report, we have our local board governance training plan. This is something that we always have to turn in. Each of our veteran board members have to have at least 9 hours, and have to have 3 more for the exemplary status. So we're looking at each board member having 12. 3 of those have to be whole board governance, and of course, that's July 1 through June 30. I know most of you were in attendance at the Savannah GSBA meeting. We have the winter meeting coming up in December. We also have some other opportunities in between. I asked Kay to put the local board training that Griffin Risa is sponsoring. I wanted you to take a look at that. Would like to know if there's anything there, and I don't know if you've had a chance to review it, but certainly if there's something that you want to participate in as a whole group as far as whole board training or other independent training. I think GSBA pushed out something. They're going to have a social emotional learning training session in Cherokee County. That's not too terribly far from here. If you'd like to participate in that, whatever you need us to do. But we will have to submit our plan. I think it's by October 1st, Kay, is that right? Is it October 1st? So we need to make some decisions here before the end of the month. And we can formalize that at our September board meeting, if that's good for you guys. Mr. Hollowell, that concludes all of the report items I have for you.
I just want to offer kudos to Roy for getting 3 times the number of hours you need. That's amazing. Good job.
He's,
Dr. Barrow thought I was working on another degree.
Well trained.
I did, I asked him that question. But that's tremendous, and we appreciate that. Information items there, I do want to mention, Dr. Lane shared with me, he's hoping that October 4th will work for everyone. I think they don't have a football game that day, and they wanted to do the ribbon cutting for their new facility there. We'll be getting out more information on that, but it'd be that Friday afternoon, I believe. And of course, the innovative programs discussion, I'd gotten some early from Mr. Pressburg, Dr. Marchman. I got yours. I have put that in a hard copy so that we can continue. The thing that I would say to the board with regard to those information items, if you can narrow down and we have a majority of the board that wants to go a little bit deeper on some of the suggested ideas, we're happy to do that. But we want to make sure we have a consensus of the group before we spend a lot of energy and time there on those items moving forward. I appreciate the feedback.
Well, and I think with, with Leonard, he was just kind of like, we spent a lot of times talking about high school and middle school, and we probably do have innovative programs going on in the elementary school, and
We do.
maybe
We
just kind of see which one of
probably
those
need
are
to share a little bit
popping
more
or
with
working,
you.
or,
Yeah.
I don't want to put words in your mouth, but.
Yeah, I mean, I think some people might argue that elementary school is more important than middle school or high school. And we spend a lot of our time talking about older students just because, they're the ones who are finishing, they're the ones we get a lot of direct feedback, but we don't really talk about a lot of the cool stuff we do in elementary school or how the board can support some of those innovative, creative things in elementary schools. So just sort of making sure we don't forget that we got a lot of little kids that we don't talk about a lot.
Good deal. Those are all the information items I have. I do need to go into executive session to discuss an item with regard to property.
Okay.
So
Need a motion to go into executive session to discuss property?
So moved.
All in favor? 5-0. Need a motion to return from an executive session?
So moved.
Second.
Dr. Barrow, any recommendations from executive session?
No, sir, no recommendations at this time.
Great. Without objection, we're adjourned.